Keep going.
Keep going? All right. Here it is a question only of the associations that are formed in civil life and which have an object that is in no way
Political.
political. So
And the next one sentence.
the political associations that exist in the United States form only a detail in the midst of the immense picture that the summer association presents there.
What is this essay going to be about? There's a word that kind of like lives through here. Isabel, what word does, what is he talking about, even if we don't quite know what it means yet? Associations. What the heck is an association? So what's the word mean? What is an association, just in Latin? It's a group of people. So de Tocqueville is talking about what he calls associations. He says in the first paragraph, I'm not talking about political associations. What type of associations? Social associations, non-political ones. And then he says, yes, there are political associations in the United States, but there are so many more other types of associations. Leslie, would you read?
Americans of all ages, all conditions, all minds constantly unite. Not only do they have commercial and industrial associations in which all take part, but they also have a thousand other kinds. Religious, moral, grave, feudal, very general and very particular, immense, and very small. Americans use associations to give
Fets.
to found seminaries, to build inns, to raise churches, to distribute books, to send missionaries to the
Antipodes.
In this manner, they create hospitals, prisons, schools. Finally, if it is a question of bringing to light a truth or developing a sentiment with the support of a great example, they associate.
Okay, stop there. So what is an association in a Tocquevillian, Jacksonian perspective? What does he mean by association? We already said an association is a group of people that does what? Comes together to do something.
Things for the community.
Things for the community. That's a perfect way to put it. And he says Americans form all sorts of associations. And we have commercial and industrial associations. Everyone who's involved in a particular industry will associate. But more importantly, he says, Americans use associations to give fetes. What is a fete? A party. Very good. A little French lingo for you there. That's more informal. A fete is what you would throw for your grandparents' 40th anniversary. That's a fete. Okay? So what does this mean? That if you want to throw a fete, you form an association. How would this work? So we're living in Elizabeth in 1835, and the principal of the local boys' high school is retiring. He has been in this position for 30 years. We'd like to throw him a party, a fete in honor of his retirement. What does it mean that we would form an association?
We have to come together.
We would form a committee. Exactly. That I say, like a fete committee. I say, you know what? I think the principal should get a party. Do you agree? Awesome. You're the vice president of the committee. Let's get a bunch of our friends together, and what we do is we put on a party.
It's like
To build an inn. What's an inn?
hotel.
It's like a tavern, a hotel.
A motel.
If we want to build, if we think that our town needs an inn, that, I'm a business owner in town, Ruben is a business owner in town, Steven is a business owner in town, and we really think that this town could use an inn. That if more people stay overnight in Elizabeth, our business will grow. So me and Ruben and Steven and Jason and anyone else, what do?
Make an inn.
We get together and we form a committee and we say, let's pool our money, let's build an inn, let's hire Karima to run it. We're gonna get Gada, she knows all about building stuff, she's gonna build it. We get together, and voila, we have an inn. To raise a church. We all are in the same congregation. Our church building is getting old, a little decrepit, hasn't been fixed in a while. How do we fix it? We get the church members together. We say, let's collect. You know, if you're wealthy, you got to put a little more, but everybody in the church puts in a little bit. And we rebuild our church. We associate. We freely choose to join together to accomplish something. To distribute books. Lindsay thinks that poor people should be able to, they can't afford books. Lindsay thinks poor people should be able to read books. She gets together with all of her middle class friends. They say, hey, she goes to her friend's house. She says, Kathy, I have this great idea. Don't you think that poor people should be able to read books? And Kathy says, yes, that's a great idea. Okay, if she said no, what would Lindsay do?
Find someone.
She would either find someone else or it wouldn't happen, so she would find someone else. So Kathy says no. Lindsay goes to Diana. Diana, do you think that poor people should be able to read books? Diana says yes. They get a bunch of their friends freely together. They say, you know, Lindsay says, we can all donate 10 of our books to a lending library. They get together. She finds 30 women interested, 30 middle-class women with books interested in helping poor people become more literate. And they say, we're going to have this library association. Lindsay becomes the president, Diana is the vice president, they meet every once in a while, and they advertise in the local newspaper that anyone who wishes to borrow books can go to Lindsay's house every alternate Tuesday, and that's how this would get done. You want to build a hospital.
Michael.
You want to build a school. That the boys' high school is really great, but you know what we could really do with the girls' high school in this town? All of the important people in town, all the people, who's interested? That it's not just money, that it's not just money. Alexis takes it upon herself. She feels very strongly about building a girls' high school. She talks to some wealthy people. They all donate some money. She talks to her friends. They donate time. They get books. They write a curriculum. She talks to her friends who know how to build stuff. They all get together. They put their time in. If they can't put money in, they put their time in. They help build it. They hire, 5 people to be teachers. That's how this stuff happened. Hospital, same thing. You want a prison in town? You go and you form an association and you create one. The prison association. If you think that conditions in the local prison are not good, you want to improve conditions in the local jail, you form an association. This is the Association for the Improvement of Conditions in the Local Jail. You get together with all the friends who think the same way, you write letters together. You hang out at each other's houses. This is what people did in 19th century America. Notice, and this is kind of the important thing here, what is completely absent from any of this? Government. There is no government here.
It's all about people.
There is no large banks, no big businesses. These are the people in a community choosing to do something freely together for their community.
Did they ever did a lot of them succeed?
They all succeeded. This is how Americans ran their affairs. If you wanted a school, you got together with people in the community and you built a school. If you didn't, guess what? No school. If you wanted a local lending library, You got together with other citizens who were interested in the same thing and made one. And if you didn't, guess what?
No library.
No library. Nowadays, we say, government help. Government do. I don't feel like doing it. Government can do it. I pay enough taxes. They can do it. That's a major difference in modern American culture. Can you associate?
We want to build let's say another library, right? Can we all get together and build it on our own?
You're going to have to deal with so many layers of government that you're probably going to look at it and just say,
Nope, too much work.
too much work.
I agree.
So, associations in American life have taken a huge hit over the last several generations. That if you were in Elizabeth in the you know what's a perfect example? I mean, ethnic associations, job associations. Right across the street from our school is a perfect example of a dead association. That Polish, Bayway Polish home, what used to happen there?
I don't know.
Anyone know? That was an ethnic association for decades in this city. That Polish immigrants would get together and they would say, here we are kind of in this new strange country, we want, and they would, that the purpose of the association was very broad. That first, it was kind of built-in socializing. You know, if you, that the Polish hall would have a polka dance every week, or at least once a month. And in a strange country, people would go there, and it was a little piece of home, but it was much more than socializing. If you lost your job and you were down on your luck, they would collect dues. And if you were struggling, the association would help you buy your groceries. If you needed a place to stay, they would help you find one. It's like a church, but it's irreligious. It might be associated with the local Catholic Church because they are Polish, but the point is that is where you went if you needed something. That's where you went for something. You went to your community before you said, government, give me food stamps. Government, give me Section 8 housing. Government. If you were sick and couldn't pay your medical bills, they did. That is how Americans lived in an era before big government.
So they don't have associations there anymore?
No. Why? I mean, first of all, the Poles all moved out. They went to Union and Springfield and Westfield and Scotch Plains.
You're right.
There's the Portuguese Club downtown, right on 1 and 9 there. That is a remnant of things that used to be, and it wasn't just ethnicity. All of the people that worked at the Singer sewing machine factory would kind of pool their resources and say, if someone got hurt at work, the community would take care of you. This is what, and we're going to talk about this, when government steps into this role, what happens to the associations? They wither and die. That it takes a certain degree of strength to say to your neighbors, I need help. It's a lot easier to fill out a form and send it into some anonymous bureaucrat. But I think we've lost something. When we lost those associations. If you felt if you didn't like the fact that everybody was drinking, you yourself would get together and form an association in favor of temperance. I'm sorry? And you might advocate for government to change rules, but in the end, the power and all of the activity is yours on a local level. There were associations, like this says, for everything. And these are the people that you knew. The people in your neighborhood, that you knew your neighbors. And you talked to them, and you went to meetings once a week for the local temperance league, or the local abolitionist league, or the local the local welcome immigrants to town league, or the local keep immigrants out league. Like anything that any social goal that you might have, you formed an association and you worked to achieve that goal. And this is what de Tocqueville is talking about. He finds this in America, these associations. And now we kind of have an idea of what they are. Let's talk about why he thinks they're there and why they're good and all those things. What? Yes. No, let's continue with who was reading. Leslie, finish that sentence. Everywhere that.
Okay, everywhere that at the head of a new undertaking, you see a government in France and a great lord in England. Count on it that you will perceive an association in the United States.
So what does that mean? So it says we have a goal. In France, in 1830, in France, who was at the head of all of these goals? Government. And in England, who is at the head? Read what it says. Some great lord, the local lord. But in America, there is no local lord. And in America, there is no big government. So at the head of these things are these associations. David, would you read in America?
In America, I encountered sorts of associations of which I confess I have no idea, and often admired the infinite art which the inhabitants of the United States manage to fix a common goal to the efforts of many men, and to get them to advantage it freely. I have since traveled to England, from which the Americans took some of their laws and many of their usages, and it appears to me that they were very far from making as constant and as skilled a use of association.
Keep going.
It often happens that English execute very great things in isolation, whereas there is scarcely an undertaking so small that Americans do not unite for it. It is evident that the former consider association as a powerful means of action, but the latter seem to see in it the sole means they have of action.
Alright, so this is all saying, I've been to England, they do some associations, but not really. Americans associate for
Small things.
everything. Like even throwing a party for the principal. Let's make an association. So now he establishes his fact. Joyce, would you read thus? Now he's going to ask a question.
Thus, the most democratic country on earth is found to be, above all, the one where men in our day have most perfected the art of pursuing the object of their common desires in common, and have applied this new science to the most objects. Does this result from an accident, or could it be that there in fact exists a necessary relation between associations and equality?
So what's his question? Here he poses a question. What's de Tocqueville's question?
Me.
Go ahead, Diana.
If associations actually do help them become like a better, free, and a place, a good place.
Now he says they do. That's not the question.
Mr.
That's not quite the question. What is the question? Go ahead, Diana. Look at it again. That he says associations are good. They accomplish things, but then he asks a question.
Like, I was gonna say that if it has something to do with equality or not.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Are the associations formed by accident or on purpose?
I don't like on purpose. So he's saying, do these associations just come up accidentally, or are they caused by
necessity?
are they caused by equality? That is the fact that America is democratic, the reason for the associations to exist, or do the associations exist based on some other factor? Or is it because of American equality? He's going to answer that question. Yes.
Aristocratic societies always include within them, in the midst of a multitude of individuals who can do nothing by themselves, a few very popular and very powerful and very wealthy citizens. Each of these can execute great undertakings himself. In aristocratic societies, men have no need to unite in act because they are kept very much together. Each wealthy and powerful citizen in them forms as it were the head of a permanent and
Obligatory.
association that is composed of all those he holds in dependence to him, whom he makes cooperate in the execution of his designs.
All right, hang up there. So, what this is telling us, he's kind of setting up his discussion about democracy and equality, and does that lead to association? And he starts with a comparison. He's going to take a comparison first. The first thing he's going to talk about is not a democratic society, but what? An aristocratic society, and the perfect example of that is what? Great Britain, England. Okay? So we're going to draw a picture here. Okay? We're going to use Ghana because she wrote. Ghana is a big giant circle. She is the local aristocrat. She is Lady Ghana.
Lady Circle.
Now, what does this say? Now, let's look at these three paragraphs that Ghana read for us. Aristocratic societies always include in them a few powerful and wealthy citizens that can do what? What's it say?
They understand each other.
That they can do stuff by what?
Because they're powerful.
Because they're wealthy and powerful. Lady Ghana is going to be she gets a big round circle because she is the local lady. She is wealthy, she is powerful. She can do things on her own. One reason is because she's wealthy and powerful. But what's the other reason that Lady Ghana can do things, can get things done on her own? What's that last part say?
Citizens.
She has other wealthy, powerful people.
Not other wealthy, powerful people.
People that depend on her.
She has, so if she's the local lord's lady person, wife, she's the local aristocrat,
Oh, unite.
her community reflexively looks to who? Her. So she has all around her little circles of people that look to her, depend on her. So if Lady Ghana says, we're going to build a hospital in this town, you're going to help me, why are they going to help her? Because she's Lady Ghana. Not because, now, it is, I realize what it is. That Lady Ghana has all of the people that reflexively look to her. She's their better. When she's in town, she is the one that everyone tips their cap to. She is the one. Well, that's what it means to be a local lord or a lady in English society in the 1830s. That there is a lot of deference to her. That she is the one that we kind of reflexively look like. If we're in tough times, she's the one that provides charity. She's the one that throws the gigantic Christmas party once a year. We get to go to the big manor house. She provides those sorts of things for us. In return, we pay kind of our rent to her. That's what makes her rich.
Right.
She gets, that's how a lord or a lady makes money. We live on her land. She's our landlady.
So like she owns the town?
She owns the town, yes.
We're living on that.
We are living, that's what makes her a British aristocrat. That she owns all of this, she owns the farm, she owns much of the town. She's the one, most of us are not voters. She picks our representatives in Parliament. She actually might be our representative in Parliament. But the point is, when she says we are going to build a hospital, what do we all say?
We agree.
We agree, not because we are kind of weighing the benefit, we're agreeing because she's
Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga. Now, can you say no?
Yes.
Yeah, of course you can say no.
But you won't.
But you won't. You won't, because you are then violating, not a law, there's no law that says we have to help Lady Gaga build her hospital,
They
but
won't
we
go to
are,
the Christmas party.
that they won't get invited to her Christmas party, and we're violating a social norm.
Yes.
And it's a lot worse to violate a social norm very often than to violate a law. I'll give you an example. Talking about violating social norms. I'm going to go out on, I'm going to make a prediction here. That here at school, you violate one of the rules. You decide, hey, you're never coming in uniform. You can make that decision. Every day you get detention. Every day you have to sit there. That's breaking a rule. You have to suffer the consequence of breaking the rule. Let's say, however, for example, that you decide that you're going to break a social norm. And you decide, you know what? I don't feel like showering ever. Let me ask you a question. Now, is there any law that says you have to shower? No. But I'm going to ask
You can be my friend.
I'm going to ask, which would be worse? Your life if you chose to break the rule of not wearing a uniform, or your life if you chose to break the norm of bathing?
The norm.
Yeah.
The norm.
That's way worse, isn't it? It's not. It's worse because you have violated one of society's norms that you keep yourself clean and not stinky. No authority can punish you for not showering.
Disturbing the peace.
That's not disturbing.
It just smell like hell.
You have a right. That's not disturbing. Folks, I promise you.
If you smell like hell, and I'm like, I probably feel that really much, and I passed out.
You won't pass out from anyone's sugar.
You're just not gonna like it.
You're just not going to like it. You don't have a right not to be offended by somebody's odor. You have no such right. You have every right in the world never to shower before you come to school. But your life is not going to be socially pleasant. That is a social norm. It is a social norm to bathe. There's no health benefit in it. You're just as healthy if you shower once every 2 weeks as you are if you shower
You
every
could
day.
create bacteria.
Shower twice every day.
But there's no reason, there's no health reason for that.
I know.
That's fine, that's your norm. And that, no one would look at Lindsay strange when she tells us that.
No, mister, can't you like catch a bacteria or like something? Wouldn't it be easier to
But yeah, when you
get
wash your hair too much, it dies. It's not like.
It's better to not wash your hair as much.
Yeah, if you take 2 showers a day, it's bound to wash your hair.
Well, if it dries your scalp, you get dandruff.
Take a shower like that.
That if you wash your hair too much. Come on,
Okay,
stop.
okay.
It is just, the last thing about this is, most people think that all of these allergies that people have are because we live in much too clean of a society. That our bodies don't know what to do because there's nothing to fight off, so we start attacking ourselves. We live in, when I was growing up, nobody had those hand sanitizers, antiseptic wipes,
I know.
like those Clorox thing, like, what do you had those? Wash your hands. When I was a kid, nobody had a peanut allergy. No one had these allergies. It just was unheard of. Now, half the frickin' population seems to have stuff like this. A lot of people say it's because our lives are so clean that our bodies we're exposed to nothing. And that is, but that's neither here nor there. Point is,
Once a year.
violating the social norm of Lady Gaga saying, let's build the hospital, is going to bring some social problems down on you. All right? Now, the problem is, in democratic America, there's no what? There's no Lady Gaga. So if I'm going to draw this picture of democratic America, what is it going to look like?
It's like a bunch of little circles.
Just a bunch of little circles. Let's read. Philip, would you read in democratic peoples on the contrary?
And democratic people are contrary. All citizens are independent and they can do almost nothing by themselves, and none of them can oblige those like themselves to lend them their cooperation.
Cooperation.
They therefore all fall into
Impotence. Why are we laughing?
if they do not learn to aid each other freely.
All right, so what does this say? That in democratic America, they're all the same. So we don't owe if that we have Lady Gaga, but now we have Citizen Monica.
She can't do nothing by herself.
Citizen Monica, first of all, is not a big enough circle to do anything on her own.
She's weak too.
But we're all weak. We are all equally weak because we are all equally equal.
She's still independent.
None of us is the local lady. But also, Lady Gaga, when she says, let's do this, what does everybody do? Helps her. But when Citizen Monica says it, we have what? We have a choice. We can either, there's no social norm to jump up when Monica says, jump up. So Monica has to convince us to do this how? By appealing to us, by explaining, by appealing to our own free will.
Or can't she just go to Lady Gaga? Can't she go to
Well, she's in the United States, and that's in England.
Oh, never mind then.
Okay, so this is the example of what it's like in England, and now in the democratic United States, there are no ladies, there are no lords. Okay? Okay? Right, so in the United States, in England, there's lots of lords and ladies. In the United States, there are none. So we have to do it differently. If men who live in democratic countries had neither the right nor the taste, to unite in political goals, their independence might run great risks, but they could preserve their wealth and their enlightenment for a long time. Whereas, if they did not acquire the practice of associating with each other in ordinary life, civilization itself would be in peril. A people among whom particular persons lost the power of doing great things in isolation, without acquiring the ability to produce them in common, would soon return to barbarism. So what does this say? If we don't have lords and ladies, and if we can't figure out a way to help Monica together, then what's going to happen? We're going to decline into barbarism. That we're all just going to be sitting there shivering alone by ourselves, unable to work together to accomplish anything. Unhappily, the same social state that renders association so necessary to democratic people renders them more difficult for them than for all others. What does that mean? Well, let's read more. Why is it difficult for them to do so? But he's going to kind of answer the question. Andrea, would you read when?
When several members of an
Aristocracy.
want to associate with each other, they easily succeed in doing so. As each of them brings great force to society, the number of members can be very few, and when the members are few in number, it is very easy for them to know each other, to understand each other, and to establish fixed rules.
All right, so let's go back to England and Lady Gaga. Let's say Lady Gaga really wants to do something big. What does it say she can do?
Whatever she wants.
No, what does it say she can do? Other who? Other people of her class. That if we take Lady Gaga, Lady Melody, Lady Kathleen, Lady Leslie, and Lady Alexis, we combine all of, there's only 5 of them, but that's a lot of social power there. And to make a group of 5 aristocrats, Tocqueville is saying, is easy. Because what? They all have the same background, they know each other, they have the same class. When we have a group of 5 people, it's easier to agree on stuff, it's easy to fix rules, it's easy to have meetings. So if Lady Gaga decides to join up with 5 other aristocrats to make a really powerful force, it's easy. But, keep reading, Andrea.
The same facility is not found in democratic nations, where it is always necessary that those associating be very numerous in order that the association have some power.
To have the same amount of power as 5 aristocrats, Karima,
It takes more of regular.
it takes more of regular people. But what's the problem now?
They disagree on.
Yeah! I'll ask you a simple question. If I said let's do a group project, the easiest way to do it would be with one other person, right?
Yeah.
If I say in a group of 5, now you're starting to deal, there's going to be someone who doesn't do anything, someone who wants to do it their way, we can't decide whose house to meet at. Now imagine I told you you had to do a group project with 25, or 100. That takes quite a bit of skill. It takes quite a bit of skill to easily run a group of 5. When I pick my DI captains, I'm picking a person that I know can run a group of 7. It's not easy. Lots of things to do, lots of different personalities. Like when I say to someone, you can be a DI captain, it's not nothing. And I will write you a very nice letter of recommendation if you do it well, as most of them do. But if I told you, because a DI captain, the head of a team of 7, has to pull everyone together to accomplish many different things, reaching at a very complicated goal. Now imagine it was 25 or 200 people. It really requires some leadership skills to get people who don't need to be there to keep coming. Remember, when are we meeting in these associations? After a hard day's work? On your one day off? Like, so it's not like these are people that have no jobs and they can do this, for fun. You have to get them in the middle of their life, and life is hard sometimes. So it's hard in a democracy when you need a lot of people to have enough social power to accomplish things, to kind of herd these people all in the same direction. It's hard. Anyone who has ever babysat, anyone who's ever worked at like a camp, how hard it is to get, 9 5-year-olds to all walk the same way.
Oh my God.
So if you can do that, I have a job for you after you graduate. You don't work at camp with me. But
You work at camp?
I have the best summer job on earth.
Do you know school?
Little
We're at
position?
50. They have the little summer catapult thing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, they put like 30 pre-Ks,
Yeah.
and you have to like line them up to the outside, and there's always like 5 kids that group up, and they're so evil. They're so evil.
Little kids are so bad.
I'll be like, sit down, and they'll look me straight in the face and say no.
I picked them up and I sit them down. I'm like,
It's hard. It's hard to hold a room. It's hard to hold a room. Alright. Now, I know. Now we get into kind of our warning for the future. We'll see if the Tocqueville was right or his critics were right. I know that there are many of my contemporaries who this does not embarrass. They judge that as citizens become weaker and more incapable, it is necessary to render the government more skillful and more active, in order that society be able to execute what individuals can no longer do. They believe that they have answered everything in saying that, but I think they are mistaken. So what is the Tocqueville saying? We said if associations fail, what must step into the breach? Government. Then he says, a government could take the place of some of the greatest American associations, and within the Union, several particular states already have attempted it. But what political power would ever be in a state to suffice for the innumerable multitude of small undertakings that American citizens execute every day with the aid of an association? I'm saying, be careful, you know, do we really want the government so powerful that it can replace what? All the little, so that maybe the big associations, but all the little ones too? Let's read kind of the scary paragraph here. Ava, would you read for us?
It is easy to foresee that the time is approaching when a man by himself alone will be less and less in a state to produce the things that are the most common and the most necessary in his life. The task of social power will...
Now, when he says social power, that's a synonym for government. The task of the social power
will therefore constantly increase, and its very efforts will make it vaster each day. The more it puts itself in place of associations, the more particular persons, losing the idea of associating with each other, will need it to come to their aid. These are causes and effects that generate each other without rest.
Hang on. So what is this saying? This is saying, if government if something is needed to be done, and government does it, where will we turn to for help? Government, which will make what weaker? Associations, which means government has to do more, which means we turn to government for that, which means the associations grow even weaker, and it becomes its own cause and effect cycle. That if I know that I can just say government will do it, I don't have to get my ass out of my house after work and go to the association meeting. It's easier, but I would argue it is a lot less free. Keep going.
Will the public administration in the end direct all their industries for which an isolated citizen cannot suffice? And if there finally comes a moment when, as a consequence of the extreme division of landed property, the land is partitioned infinitely, so that it
can no longer be cultivated.
Can no longer be cultivated except by associations of laborers. Will the head of the government have to leave the helm of the state to come home to plow?
You're kind of asking a sarcastic question there. But what is he saying? That this is kind of what, this is a visual representation of kind of what he's talking about. There is the problem is I tried to catch it, it like fell out of my hand, and then I tried to snatch it and it flew.
The goal.
She threw it at me. I forgave you, Dada.
Here's little you.
Oh, wow.
In a democratic society, you are small. Because there's no Lady God. That you are just one free-born citizen in this country the same as anyone else. Government is big. Government can smush you because it is so big. Associations seek to exist in what space?
In between.
The space in between.
Oh my God.
That the association is a mediating institution between you, the tiny little citizen, and big, enormous government. That the problem is, when there's a lot of powerful associations, we are protected from being smushed. But as this gets bigger, what does Tocqueville say must happen to these?
Yeah,
They get smaller. And eventually, the fear is that we are asking government to do so much, and we have lost all these mediating institutions that stand in between us and the state. It's become, and here's the problem, it's become just like Lady Gaga, but what's the difference between government and Lady Gaga?
People like Lady Gaga.
People like Lady Gaga. What, well, go back to what we were talking about her type of authority.
The government doesn't need other people to help them.
The government doesn't need other people to help, and that's true.
And the government doesn't put the social norms, it puts the
Yeah, government, if you don't follow Lady Gaga's social norms, you can still live your life. But if you decide you don't feel like following governments, they'll chuck you in prison. That there's force. Anytime government does anything, there's an implication of force, not persuasion. Force. Let's keep reading. Paul, would you read the morality and intelligence?
The morality and intelligence of a democratic people would risk no fewer dangers than its business and its industry if the government came to take the place of associations everywhere.
Keep on.
Sentiments and ideas renew themselves, and the heart is enlarged, and the human mind is developed only by the reciprocal action of men upon one another. I have shown this action in almost non-existent in a democratic country. It is therefore necessary to create it artificially there, and this is what associations alone can do.
Okay, hang on. So what does this say?
Association.
Citizen. What did we use?
She has a retainer, right?
Monica, she has a retainer.
Was it? Who was our little citizen?
Monica.
Citizen Monica. Citizen Monica is it. What this is saying that in a democratic country where everyone is equal and we're all immigrants and we're all different and we've all kind of been thrown together in this big old pot. We're not, there is no, here's the thing what he's saying. We leave our families, we move to faraway states for jobs. You know, think about how distant you might be or your parents might be from their siblings. That we live in a world, in democratic America, in economically free America, we break those traditional connections. When you choose, I'm going to move to Texas for this awesome job, and you leave your family behind, that's like, we admire that in the United States. But what de Tocqueville is saying is once you get to Texas, unless you are able to join some other types of associations, you are going to be a lonely, sad soul. Because you have nothing that sentiments and ideas renew themselves, the heart is enlarged, and the human mind is developed only when we do what? We associate and interact with one another. When the members of an aristocracy adopt a new idea or conceive a novel sentiment, they place it in a way next to themselves on the great stage they are on, and in thus exposing it to the view of the crowd, they easily introduce it to the minds or hearts of all those surround them. So if, for example, if Lady Gaga decided that, you know what, I don't like slavery. I am going to be anti-slavery. Because she's Lady Gaga, she has a giant stage. Once Lady Gaga says, anti-slavery, a lot of people do what? Anti-slavery. Why?
She's
Because she's Lady Gaga. She has a lot of, but when Citizen Monica says anti-slavery,
Nobody pays
no one pays attention to her. Unless she works at it. Unless she works at establishing influence. It doesn't come automatically. In democratic countries, so what, the next paragraph, guys. In a democratic country, only the social power government is naturally in a state to act like this, but it is easy to see that its action is always insufficient and often dangerous. A government can no more suffice on its own to maintain and renew the circulation of sentiments and ideas of a great people than to conduct all its industrial undertakings. As soon as it tries to leave the political sphere to project itself on this new track, it will exercise an insupportable tyranny even without wishing to. This is what we were saying a minute ago. For government knows only how to dictate precise rules. It imposes the sentiments and the ideas that it favors. And it is always hard to distinguish its advice from its orders. That if we decide that government is going to set the tone, if we don't like it, guess what?
We don't do it.
You still have to follow it.
You still have to follow it. Why?
Or else.
This is the government.
Because it's the freaking government. If Lady Gaga says, check this out, you don't have to follow it. That's the dangerous thing about government. That government, it's very difficult to determine if is government suggesting something or is it ordering something, because every law government passes has the power of force behind it. Now what happens to the citizens if we allow government to do that? Let's see. Ruben, would you read? This will still be worse.
This will still be worse if it believes itself really interested in having nothing stir. It will then hold itself motionless and let itself be numbed by a voluntary somnolence.
It is therefore necessary that it not act alone. If the people fail to associate and give over all of the authority to government, what will happen to the people?
They'll be. Are you reading?
Go ahead.
They'll become weaker.
They'll not weaker. I mean, yes, weaker. They'll be numbed. Voluntary somnolence. Somnolence means sleep. It will be as if the people are asleep and just letting government act on them. That's not freedom. Not like they used to. They exist. It's not like they used to. They used to be everywhere. In democratic peoples, associations must take the place of the powerful particular persons whom equality of conditions may disappear. That means, without Lady Gaga, what do we have to do?
Follow the government.
No. Now he's back to, he gives his warning, now he's back to
Follow
create associations. As soon as several of the inhabitants of the United States, have conceived a sentiment or an idea that they want to produce in the world, they seek each other out. And when they have found each other, they unite. From then on, they are no longer isolated men, but a power one sees from afar, whose actions serve as an example, a power that speaks and to which one listens. Now he's going to give an example, which... Kathy, did you read, Kathy? No. Kathy's going to read for us. The first time I heard it.
The first time I heard it said in the United States that 100,000 men publicly engaged not to make use of strong liquors, the thing appeared to me more soothing than serious. Amusing than serious. And at first I did not see why such temperate citizens were not content to drink water within their families.
So what is he saying? What did 100,000 people in the United States do? Stop drinking. They took, but it's not that they just stopped drinking. What did they do? They publicly engaged. What does that mean?
In public, without embarrassment.
They made an announcement. People, I'm not drinking anymore. They signed their name to it. And de Tocqueville kind of says, when I first saw this, I said, well, just why not the hell just do it in your house? Who the hell cares? And then he answers the question. Keep reading. In the end.
In the end, I understood that those 100,000 Americans, frightened by the progress that drunkenness was making around them, wanted to provide their patronage to sobriety. They had acted pricelessly like a great lord who would dress himself very plainly in order to inspire the scorn of luxury in simple citizens. It is to be believed that it is those 100,000 men had lived in France, each of them would have addressed himself individually to the government, begging it to oversee the cabarets all over the realm.
So what is de Tocqueville saying here? That you combine 100,000 people and you have created something as powerful as what? As the Lord. And you have created a social force. And then he goes on to say, look, this one, he's the town drunk, I guess. For me? There is nothing, there is nothing according to me that deserves more to attract our regard than the intellectual and moral associations of America. We easily perceive the political and industrial associations of the Americans, but the others escape us. And if we discover them, we understand them badly, because we have almost never seen anything analogous like them. One ought, however, to recognize that they are as necessary as the first to the American people, and perhaps more so. In democratic countries, the science of association is the mother science. The progress of all the others depends on the progress of that one. Among the laws that rule human societies, there is one that seems more precise and clear than all the others. In order that men remain civilized or become so, the art of associating must be developed and perfected among them in the same ratio as equality of conditions increases.
So how long is it?
Several hundred days.
Really good.
It's very good.
So good. All right, that's great.